carry on. I might turn purple again. We might just have to tolerate it. Just pretend it's my aura. Okay, is everyone cool? And let's continue. Okay, so we were thinking about, we were considering is everyone back and fine? Okay, so in considering the yoni and birth, let's also, you know, it's a bit intimidating to have that area looked at and focused on, because we might also be worried about things that come out, secretions, smells. So this is also, you know, things that we worry about, I think, in birth. Does anybody worry about a PV, a vaginal examination? I mean, there's a thought of...
For sure.
Yes.
Also, if I'm, I mean, for my second birth, I did consult a male gynecologist. So that was, that made me very uncomfortable. I mean, even though he was very respectful every time he did a PV for me, but it was uncomfortable.
Yeah, so it brings up these things. It brings up male, female staff, all these things. So let's face it, it's a very intimate part of our body that we have a lot of kind of, a lot of feelings and experiences about, but we don't know so much, or we're not taught so much how to actually look after it, if we're taught at all. So it's almost like there's this very sacred part of our body, but we're not taught how to even, actually we're like too intimidated to look at it ourselves, you know, or to, if we want to just understand it ourselves, we feel a bit shameful sometimes, or a bit like, let me, you know, there's that sense around it. So what my work with women and the red tent and women's health right in this aspect of our body is that, you know, the stigma that we put to it, it's actually the very opposite. And it is that much of a stigma that we kind of separate it or keep it away from the sacred. And the sacred is so much more than that stigma. So it's an interesting kind of divide. What I've also learned from my work is that the yoni will and can communicate to us very directly and very subtly and in all very many different ways. And we need to know this as women, that we can actually receive information and wisdom from our yoni, and we can follow it and respect it. So a lot of my work with the yoni has also been through a product I developed called Yoni Balm, and that is using nature to care for our yoni. And it was kind of applying the principles and the language of yoni into a balm that you would care for her. And through that and sharing that with other people, I've also come to learn a lot more about how women view and experience our yoni, and what people want, what women want, and how we, just so much about our relationship with yoni. And I have to be honest, the reason I'm saying this is because I've received so much more information from Yoni herself through women and through working with her with products and listening to women and birth. I've learned so much more from Yoni herself than I could have ever learned at medical school, where we did the anatomy and the physiology and the clinical stuff in medical school and at the hospitals. So I have another question. How many of us know our own yonis? Now, I think we are a biased group, but still, how can we feel, how many of us do feel that we know our yoni and our own yoni? I mean, I would say I'm kind of like learning, you know, if there was like a 10 and a 1, I wouldn't say I'm close to the 10. I feel very, you know, I feel there's so much more to learn. But yes, I know the anatomy. Do we know what our yoni likes? Are we allowed to know what our yoni likes and doesn't like? Do we know what our own yoni likes? 8. Please 8. Tara raised her. Okay, sorry, Tara. I'm reading the announcement. Tara, go ahead.
Hi, Gauri. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm not in a space for video, but I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
So in, the work that I do, and obviously the work that I've done with Ma Sophia, and, on our journey of womb discovery, the yoni is a big part of what we do. So we have, like daily practices and stuff around it. And just maybe, I'm also not a 10, I would think, like maybe 8 or 9, because I believe we always still learn, right, about our yonis, and every day you discover more about it. But I do think that in the beginning, when we were given these practices, it was scary, to do these things, or you're like, this is so weird and so strange, because I think you always just look at your yoni being used as maybe like a sexual organ, and not as something you use to get information out of, or to get wisdom out of. So I think in the beginning it's always a scary situation, but I felt that in my birth after doing this work, it was a lot more powerful, and a lot more like I had no doubts at all. Where maybe previously I did have a little bit of doubts, but this time I didn't have any doubts at all, because I knew, and I had that relationship. And even in prepping for the birth, speaking to the yoni, telling it to open, telling the, and just connecting on that level.
That's so lovely, Tara. Thank you, because that is kind of the point of this talk, or the first part of the talk, is that actually our relationship and how we connect with our yoni does make a difference. So let's go a little bit more into it, because I don't think you're alone in sharing that it feels a bit foreign, or a bit like scary, or a bit unfamiliar, or a bit weird. And it's really filled with a lot of our imprinting, or what social media has said around, and religion. So let's get a bit more into it. So some of us feel we know our own yoni different ways. So how can we feel empowered and encouraged to understand our own yoni, and to be able to look with a mirror, to put a mirror down on the floor, or in between your legs, and be able to actually look at our own yoni and understand our own anatomy. And this area has to be very, very sensitive, because it is so sensitive for us that we have to know, we have to be able to do it in a very safe and protected environment, where we feel safe, and because our own feelings of the judgments and the shame and guilt and all these things need to come up. This is the wisdom of the yoni. But in getting to know our own yoni, the reason we don't is because of all these barriers. So it will bring up feelings, and we need to just be aware. And I'm just saying that into a sensitivity here, because my deepest wish is that we feel safe, empowered, and ownership over our own yoni. So whatever I'm saying, and whatever I feel is said about a yoni, or whatever practice we are wanting to do, there is a sense of filtering through ourselves, and filtering into your yoni, and feeling, am I ready for this today? And if your yoni says no, you can ask why, but you need to honor that. So like if you're doing, I'm jumping now to practices, but if you're doing yoni egg practices, you will ask permission for your yoni before you insert a yoni egg. The same way, when you're getting to know your yoni, and we can get to know her so many ways, because she's actually changing. She changes a lot. She changes monthly. She changes monthly during our menstruation. So it's interesting to be able to hold our own space when we are exploring, and if something is not feeling comfortable, listen to yourself. Don't push past your own inner boundary. In the same way, if someone else is examining you, you should be able to say no. In the same way, when you're starting to explore, let's just hold that sacred space and feel into what your body is saying. And if you're feeling, no, I'm not ready for this, slow down, stop. So just listen to our Yoni. When I just want to be sensitive when I say, let's find out what our anatomy looks like. It's not just it's not an arm muscle. It holds a lot more to us. So just, yeah. Really, Marianne, let me open the comment. Anatomy, I know, but the reconnection part and wisdom is something I hadn't heard about. Talking and listening is new, feel a bit wobbly about it. So that's what I'm acknowledging, that this is not just anatomy. So let's keep talking, because let's turn that feeling of like trepidation, or however it might be felt, into, sorry, I've lost my share screen. Here we go. Into something more empowering. But let's also go into this a bit. So what is our reaction to a young girl touching her yoni? Because we all started as young girls. So whatever we're carrying now as imprinting has come through us, or how we saw our parents act to our sister, or but generally you have to have quite like advanced parents, I think, that would not say, don't do that here, go to your room, you don't do that, that's dirty. A lot of shame. Okay, right. So we have to just acknowledge this. What is our reaction? What could our reaction be? Okay, well, we need to think about this. Our reaction in a not shameful way, but in a sacred way. How many of us learn our yoni anatomy or about our yoni from somebody else? Or how many of us have had to learn it through just figuring out life ourselves? How do we feel, Tanika? Yeah, learning, I mean, which one? Learning through life yourself?
Yes, I feel like only with my birth have I really started, after the birth, I've only really started doing the actual work, because before there was so much shame, like you don't touch there, you don't look there. The only interaction you have is when you wee and you wipe. Like that was a big disconnection.
And sex?
I struggled with that a lot.
Yeah.
I got a no from my body a lot, and I didn't understand why, because my head wanted to, but my body didn't. So I had to work through a lot of that. And it's trust. Like I had to build trust in myself.
Yeah. So these are big topics. Leah also.
Yeah, like I remember for me, I discovered I had a vagina when I was like about 11 in the shower, and I got so scared because I found I had a hole in there and I had no idea. Like I was showering and then my hand kind of slipped in, and I got so terrified because nobody told me. So now I can tell you that my daughters, they know about the anatomy, and my youngest, since she's around 2, she loves to tell around that she's got a vagina.
Good for her.
She loves to know that, like, because maybe I put so much pride in explaining to her that she feels the pride.
Yes.
I had a very similar story. I also discovered it one day that I have 3 holes instead of 2. And I went to my mother and I said, Mom, there is something wrong with me. I had 3 holes instead of 2. I need to go see a doctor. And I think I was 9 or 10 years old.
So interesting. You see, our yoni has a story. Beginning, I started with last week with our womb has a story, but I feel our yoni, our genitalia, has a story also. And you can see how we need to be sensitive around this topic, and we can see how much it brings up, but we can also see how much there is a disconnect but this is the very portal of our birth. It's not only the portal of our birth, it's the portal of our creation, of intercourse, of creation. Started to rain here. So I want to reframe Yoni care. You can see why we need to reframe Yoni care. But before we do that, let's actually take a minute, and I'm going to time it. If you can write it down on a piece of paper or on the computer or in your head, but it's nice to write down because then it makes it concrete. Just brainstorm all the negative words we've heard about that you could call a Yoni through our negative experiences, media, friends, teachers, gynaes, boyfriends, negative experience, negative own self-talk, lots of swear words. So I'm going to just time a minute and let's just actually let that pass through us. Okay, that's about a minute. And we can just say some, just unmute and kind of brainstorm. They call it popcorn. You can just pop your answers all over. Different words for yoni or vagina that
you know, can I chat? I have such an aversion to bad names for the vagina, and I don't know why. It's always been a huge thing for me. And one of my worst words, and I hate even saying it out loud on camera, is cunt. And the other day, I wanted to go find the origin of it because it really upsets me so much when someone uses that word. And all it means is wedge. It's just a word for wedge. And it was just the shape, and somebody said it and it became this word. And now I've got a different affiliation with it. So I've let it go because it really, if I heard the word, I would go into like, because to me, it's sacred, the vaginal space. And every bad word, pussy, cunt, all these horrible, horrible words, I really battle with that. Even now, I couldn't write them down. I didn't want any, in my beautiful book of all the notes from your course, I didn't want any bad negative words. And it does affect me because to me, and I've always been incredibly open about it. And I've got 2 daughters, and from birth, they've known their anatomy and how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is to explore it and to make love and all these things, because we are so blessed to be female, to be woman, to be able to create, to give birth, that you must enjoy it, you must celebrate it. And so I do have a different thing, and I really battle with negativity about it. Anyway, that's my 5 cents.
Yeah, don't worry, we're not going to keep it in your book. Manjari?
Some of the words I wrote was troublesome, painful, source of suffering, because from the basically the first months when I got my period, it used to be extremely painful. I used to be in bed for 2 days, and people would even like kind of make fun out of me and put me down because of that. And it's still like very much present to me that yeah, it's just painful. It's just all about pain and suffering, and why is it like that? And yeah, so all these negative connotations come up.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that's also bringing in the describing words, you know, that is a source of pain, or there's other words that sweaty, smelly.
Dirty, of course, also.
We have this feeling that it's dirty. I mean, that cunt is not a swear word, it's a wedge. See, is a name for like my favorite feline. These words are not the stories we attach to them, you know. So you can all, does anyone share a word or a feeling? Okay, before we go into reframing, Yoni, I'm going to share a little bit of my story, just a little bit, because I had an epiphany last night in the shower. When I was 19, I was very shy as a young girl. And when I was 19, I basically became a nun. So I became a celibate nun and left society for 7 years. And the first year, my menstruation stopped. And I could never find out why. And it didn't bother me because it meant I could just do more service in the ashram. Because if you had your period, you had to stop for the first day and rest. So I never had that. So I could just keep going. And I was 19 and I wanted everything and I wanted all of it. So I was very enthusiastic, but I didn't have my period. And I got to completely cut off from interacting with the opposite sex in any way that could be lusty at all. I completely disconnected myself with my Yoni, basically. And so she disconnected from me and she didn't have a period for a year. And only last night, like 20 years later, almost, I realized that she was communicating with me. I mean, eventually I went to the doctor and I tried to have hormone tests and nothing was wrong. And a few weeks later, it came back when my attention started getting drawn to it. I'm like, okay, this isn't right. So my womb was talking to me in that way. So this is how so my journey coming out of that has been very much a reframing Yoni, I guess, for me, from a place that it's dirty, it's private, it's too private, it's like so fucking private, no one must ever like come near it. It's actually not even me. And how dare I know about my Yoni, to like, oh my God, you know what? Our Yoni is our portal of creation and we have the birthright to pleasure. And it is through understanding how we can receive pleasure that we receive the codes of creation. And for me, this is bringing together the energy of the Taurus. We have that central canal through which everything is coming and everything is magnetizing and energizing around it. And we have this, you can see it, this. Okay, this is a rising or a down energy. It's a central, strong force of energy. It is our center line. If you want to go into the embryology of our Yoni, I think I do bring that up. It is in our center line. It is in our center line from our crown, our third eye. Our mini Taurus is here, by the way. The embryology of this, our heart space, our gut and digestion, our central line, our nervous system, and our Yoni. And the whole act of creation for me is symbolized as energetics. And I think, who was it, Divya or someone was saying that exploring the elements in a tangible way is also allowing ourselves to receive energy. So in reframing Yoni, I've gone as far as almost seeing like everything through the lens of Yoni, because for me, Yoni means portal of creation through understanding your energy, through understanding and receiving pleasure. And for a woman to receive pleasure is an extremely, can be an extremely vulnerable and terrifying thing. One, because who are we to receive pleasure? Remember, I was a nun. To it feeling very scary because we've had to do so much to protect ourselves down there, maybe from so many things. So all those words, let's just put them in a metaphorical fire right now, because I'm not sure you have a fire next to you, or tear them up and just do something in your mind for 30 seconds, which is releasing them, releasing those words, releasing those imprints, and just allowing us to reframe Yoni. So let's reframe Yoni. Let's start a brand new slate, clear, and allow me to reveal to you the mystery and the secrets and the true jewels of Yoni wisdom. Because when we can reframe Yoni, we can also reframe our own attitude and our own self-care that we put to ourselves, our whole selves, and our perceptions that create our actions and messages to give our body and others. When we reframe Yoni for ourselves, it basically changes our perception, which changes how we interact with our Yoni and with others, and it will affect how other people interact with us and our Yoni. So I think this is exceptionally important when we are coming into a space of caring for another woman, specifically her Yoni or the whole area. Yeah. So because we are bringing our unconscious thoughts, and if we don't take responsibility for clearing those connotations we might have to our Yoni story, we are going to have it somewhere in our own body, in our own reaction when we're interacting with people on it. So it can cloud our energetics when we're being present with others. And therefore we need to consciously work with that and go into space of conscious releasing and replacing it consciously with affirmation, clarity, respect, and a sacred awareness. So it takes, the reason I'm saying a conscious effort is because we had to write those things to kind of see how much we put on it. And that is only a glimpse. You can, I mean, in South Africa, they're extremely vivid with that, but we're not going back there. We're now reframing. It's the effort. You have to put the effort in. It kind of can't just happen over there while you carry on. We have to sometimes just harness that effort and put it into embodiment. Okay, so now we're going to connect with our own Yoni and just do some breathing into our own Yoni to bring into this experience in our own body of connecting, so we can actually come into that space of reframing Yoni. So yeah, take a moment to just find a comfortable place to sit, comfortable way to sit. Just allow your shoulders to drop and settle your mind onto your breathing slowly in and out. Just taking each breath slowly and long, allowing it to filter into your body through your nose, down to your chest. It's lifting your chest as you inhale and sinking down as you exhale. Becoming conscious of your abdomen rising falling. Just feeling your breath reach right down your arms to your hands and down your pelvis to your feet. Now settle your hands over your womb and yoni area. You can put them closed or you can put them like this. Just helping yourself to connect a bit deeper to your own body. And then for the next breaths, just bring a conscious attention to your pelvic, your yoni area. And just start appreciating the amazing power and shakti of our yoni area. You can imagine that in your mind you are entering a beautiful sacred temple. And the doors are there and they are decorated grandly, decorated with flowers from sacred trees and holy smells. You're entering with a sense of reverence. You're looking at this temple. There's a sense of respect, of going inside within yourself. And then just consider that, or you might enter this temple, you might bow your head, you might enter in a very respectful way. And then just consider that our yoni is also a temple. A temple in a sense of holding a very sacred, special place. And that it's okay to what do they say, entrance, to limit your entrance, to have a certain boundary. Do not just let anything inside the sacred temple. And that it is your choice. Just imagine how we could reframe Yoni in a way that it is a sense of holding that power of majesty, of divinity, of creativity, of Shakti. And how much we have been told, or how much messages we might have given our own Yoni life. And how we have an opportunity now to hear her messages to us. Let's just hold space. We've spoken about so many other names. Let's hold space and just allow her to feel, or us to feel connected to Yoni and to feel what words she might want to bring back to us personally, our own story, how Yoni might share words of safety, of expression, of, hey there, thanks for seeing me. And how you can really create a connection with Yoni that can guide you, because she is so connected to your intuitive knowing. That it is even said, if you don't know, ask Yoni. You don't know any question, put your hand on Yoni, put your energy down there. I believe you'll get a very, very clear yes or no. You need to follow this. So I'm just going to allow a little bit of silence as we can just listen into any messages our Yoni might have for us. Anything she wants to express to us or have heard or have permission to feel or express. You can imagine breathing a bright white light that is simply coming into Yoni with each breath, and it's allowing her to feel worthy of being in that light and in that shine and experiencing being paid attention, experiencing being allowed to feel present and heard. And just allow her last few messages to come to you through your hand, through your feeling, through your breaths. Just to close off the session, we want to give a feeling back to our Yoni, and you can think whatever comes up to your mind of what we might feel grateful to Yoni for, and you just give her back in whatever way that gratitude, through a word or through an image or through a color or a just giving that sense of gratitude back to her. So much we receive from her. Receiving your last messages from her, we can start to shift back to being here. Let's in our chest, roll our shoulders, just move our bodies, our fingers, our toes. Come back to our space here. So I feel that it's really, really important that each and every woman can know that there is a very different paradigm of Yoni wisdom that is available. And the reason I use the word Yoni is because it's a beautiful Sanskrit word. And I love bringing that sacred energy into our vagina and our space, that it is a sacred temple, a sacred entrance. And by changing our perception and being gentle and loving and considerate, we can see how we create an understanding and a connection with Yoni that I wouldn't say is only conducive. I would say it's essential or is leading even for me in our healing. So there's so much we can get from our Yoni space physically, but even physically you access the emotional. So when we change our perception to gentle, loving, and considerate, we can see how we can receive so much more from our Yoni. And we are entering indeed into our own inner sacred temple, our own femininity, and we can heal abuse and connotations that we might have adopted around our Yoni. So by working with our Yoni in a loving way, we understand that she holds wisdom, and that we can tap into this into this wisdom by caring for her. And I've also learned that she loves care and attention. And I've also learned that we are scared to touch Yoni and to clean properly. And I don't know if as girls we are even taught how to wipe correctly, or at the most we are taught how to wipe correctly. So in my mission for reframing women's healthcare, Yoni gets a lot of attention because of the complete antithesis of what her potential. And I do think that that has come across around for a reason, because if we actually wholeheartedly and without any sense of the guilt or shame, if we wholeheartedly embrace the power of our Yoni, we would be too powerful for this earth, I think. And at the people, there are definitely people here on earth who have harnessed the Yoni power, but often we have to pretend that we don't, because it's too powerful, and it scares people. It's so powerful that is why they suppress it and repress it and make us feel unable to tap into a very important part of our own body. So it is political. It's political. That's why I brought in the temple, because we think of decorating a temple with jewels, and in the same way, there is a sense, I can definitely sense that spirit or that essence of divinity coming through a portal of our Yoni. These are my Yoni earrings, by the way. There's a succulent in South Africa. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see? It's like that feichi succulent. It's got those beautiful lips. We see Yonis everywhere, by the way, just in case you thought we could be so private. Like Mother Earth is showing Yoni everywhere. Let's just go there a bit. I'm going to share the screen. Yes. That. Sorry, I wasn't ready. Okay. I mean, it's like Mother Nature's like, just having so much fun with this amazing part of our bodies. She's the references and the analogies are too kind of beautiful to ignore. In our caves, in our mountains, in our shells, in our fruits, in our waterfalls. And then just in case we were like a bit shy or embarrassed, you have to go look at the vagina galleries, because she has loads and loads of photo pictures and sketch pictures of just how different we all are. And we get very like, oh my God, do I look right? Is the one longer than the other? Is the one it's gone all purple, or it's all thick, or or it's too short or too long? I mean, the things we saw in the hospital, a mother brought her daughter in because the labia minora were too long. There's no too long. So everyone's different. But you can also make some nice fun things if you want. Okay. Stop share. I think that's important because, sorry, let me get out of. I have to be so patient with myself, figuring this out sometimes. Thank you. So I just love that. It brings the point home for me, but it also helps me to get to know my own Yoni and my own spirit of my Yoni by bringing those practical things in. So when I went to the beach, all I saw was yonis. It was like Yoni. Where's the camera? Yoni. After Yoni. Oh, wait. I don't know, maybe I'm the only crazy one who sees this. But then these started coming up. And I was like, oh my God, these are orgasmic, cosmic yonis. It doesn't come out so well on the camera. And then I even found a pelvis. It's not really anatomical because everything's joined. Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy. But like, this is the iliac crests and, you know, the foramina, and this is the pelvic, the inner pelvic, the inner pelvic inlet, you know. So, okay. Now, so here's such a beautiful vagina, huh? Just look at this, you know, if on the one side, of course, this is vagina is more like that. But just look how beautiful that is. So I just saw a vagina there. I mean, I'm not like, you see, I even started second guessing myself, like, oh my God, maybe I'm like is this porny? But this is the essence of creation. So we have to filter through what our minds are telling us. This is the most beautiful, mature, craggy yoni. You know, lumps and warts, everything. We are so beautiful. And then because, you know, God has such a sense of humor and he's so beautiful with it, I found this. Because everything comes back to love. I found a few like this. Okay, but I also found this. It's a tiny one. Can you see the curls? It's a spiral. Yeah. It's also a very strong, pointed phallus or phallic, penetrating, strong force. This is fun for me, you know, like we have to get out of the language of medicine and into the language of the heart and nature. And this is where the connections come. So we're so used to judging ourselves that especially for me, I went through like, you know, conditioning of a private school for 12 years. It was extremely competitive. And then I got into med school twice. So, you know, the amount of the way we value ourselves and how and academics and science and how well we, you know, like all the evidence is biased anyway, really, just to tell you the truth about that. So I get my information from this, and I've learned in this many years to trust that this is also a way to get information, if not the way for me. You know, everyone has a different way and we can go through different parts of our lives accessing it. But to access Yoni wisdom is a complete journey, I think. There's always so much more to it. But you can see how deeply we need to reframe her as sacred. And I think other people also mentioned how Tara mentioned how her birth really connected that for her. And for me, and Tanika, I think you said, for me, it was the same. It was after my birth with my first son. First, I felt I could like look and like understand her a bit more. But I also was like, yeah, she's cool. Look what she did. And my second baby, I tore for my first baby and I had stitches, and it was probably the most uncomfortable part of my birth was the stitches after the birth. So I really got that, and I didn't want to tear for my second baby. And I tried to kind of not grow a big baby. And he was a little bit smaller. I mean, they were never too big. And I'm going to tell you what I did just now when I get there in my notes about or the practical side. But yeah, it's definitely a journey. And these organs are vessels of, this is what is so hard for us, especially nowadays. They're organs of receptivity. So they are organs of receiving. We can't rush an orgasm, and we can't rush birth, and we can't rush a yoni. You know, it's not like that. It doesn't work in that language of urgency or time even, or like you got to start here and get there. Maybe that's why we can't put it on a level of 1 to 10. Actually, I think it's like this. It's not a timeline. So that's like how the yoni works, you know. So we to actually receive, you can't just say like, okay, I'm going to receive. You actually have to like receive. So with the yoni, she doesn't like do superficiality. So we have to be very patient with our time. We're not in a rush. Okay, now you can see I'm talking about the language of yoni, but now as a practitioner or somebody like that, we need to act with those language. So if you are coming to a yoni to examine, to anything, or in our context to examine or to support a woman, you have, and in anyone's context, actually, if we're going to a gynae for an examination or something, we should be patient and we should be able to lead that examination. So we should say, I will tell you when I'm ready, or she can ask, or he can ask. What I do actually is, I'll have my gloves on and I'll say, if this is the yoni, I'll say, you know, these are my hands. You can feel them on your skin. It's what it feels like. And I say, okay, here I am at the entrance. I'm going to go inside. You go inside and you say, are you okay? You know, and you check with the person. And and then, yeah, you know, so you don't just go like, you actually go, this is what my fingers feel like. And then they get a bit more trust, you know, like, okay, they're not big, stompy fingers. They are going to be checking with me. This is the pressure that, you know, so you need to translate the language that we're talking about with the yoni when we are working with yoni. So we need to be patient. We can't rush. We're trusting a higher wisdom with our womb and our yoni. And our yoni receives everything. She is very porous. So when we are with ourselves, you know, ourselves and our own yoni, this is where we will pack our guilt, our shame, our self-hate, our pity, our self-talk, our hearts. And what we can learn about keeping yoni sacred is first we get to control who and what enters. So we need to tell our gynaes, you need to, we have to have this communication. We have to have this communication, or we need to find gynaes that will listen to us and support them. So we need to check in with our, so what, who and what enters. You can use your imagination. It can be a doctor's gloved fingers doing an examination. It can be an amniotic hook. It can be sexually. It can be in whatever context. The yoni is the temple. The yoni is the temple. And there was a mudra I wanted to show you that we could have done in the meditation, but I forgot to show you. To connect with yoni, it's like this. A mudra is like a hand gesture in India, in the Vedas, that connects the energy with yoni. So I like to do it like this. Okay, over yoni. That's it. I'll send a picture. I mean, after the thing. And it's like this. And this, you know, the mudras are helping to align and create connections. And I find they can be helpful to do. So that's the yoni mudra. And if you just want to connect with yoni, I think by doing the mudra, you'll be connecting with her energy and her wisdom. So that's another way. So check in with your yoni as to what is making you feel turned on. Now, turned on held a lot of shame for me for a long time. But let's think of that rather as an attraction to life, you know, to feel everything, to experience it, to show that you are engaging with the creative rhythm and wisdom of life, turned on, not like turned off. So turned on in that way. And our Yoni can give us a guide to what turns us on and to what turns us off. And we don't need to feel ashamed or guilty of our Yoni, but rather proud and that we can receive her communication. So those first pictures I showed, those 2 pages, that's part of a booklet I created called Our Yoni is Sacred. And I'll share it. I did share it on the course site already, but it speaks about also preparing for our birth, the tearing part. So before we go on to the practical part, maybe we should take a 10-minute break. Is that okay with everyone, or should we just carry on like yesterday?
I can ask a question here, Gauri.
Mhm.
Okay, so one, how long do you think this is going to go on for? Because I have to leave in half an hour to bring my son home. So if this is, if we are going to, if it's not too much after the break, then maybe.
So we'll continue. And now we're going to just go into the practical part. Just reading Maven's question. How to care for our Yoni, washes, massages during pregnancy and everyday life, please. So, yeah. Thank you for that question. I'm going to come back to it. So just remind me if I don't. I just want to get into the birth space and the pushing and the real question of pushing without tearing. And I just want to share with you what I experienced in my birth, which I just felt there was so much message there of really real practical advice. There are other practical advice things I also want to bring in, and that does include massage and Yoni pichu, oiling, and there is the epino and different things that we could do to prepare Yoni during pregnancy, and taking care of her postpartum is a whole nother story also. But for my birth, what happened is that you saw the picture from the first talk. I birthed in the pool, lying back onto my midwife's legs. And I could feel, so what we want in the pushing phase, just to catch up with the physiology there, is that there's the contractions for those who are not so familiar with the birth physiology process. There is the contractions, the uterus is bearing down. It takes time for the baby to descend through the open cervix, and he descends through the pelvis. And during that time of descending is where many doctors will put it on a clock, and they will call that second stage, and they'll name it from when you are fully dilated, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the baby has descended along with that fully dilation. So it's very misinterpreted about the timing, and then you put on the clock for it. So this part of labor in hospital and with many, many midwives is very, very controlled in a sense of push. And because we are also taking in what we have seen on the media, which mostly makes this part look really not like it is. You don't go push, 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 and out comes the baby, and you look at the baby, and you know, it's really is, what we really want is the fetal ejection reflex. And there's a reflex where your body automatically pushes, almost the same as we would make a big stool movement or a stool movement that, you know, your body can't control once you are pushing like that. So having a baby is that uncontrollable reflex, fetal ejection reflex, which we want because that is what pushes the baby out under the strength of the design and of the uterus, and so that the mother doesn't necessarily have to push with her what would you say? Her not voluntary mind. She doesn't have to tell her body to push. You don't have to push your muscles. Your body is doing it itself. So that is the the fetal ejection reflex. So we want to allow labor. We want to be hands-off enough that the mother can experience that. So before we've even got to pushing the baby out, just to get the baby down, is something that is not counted in this whole stage. And therefore it affects the clock. But I'm not talking about the descent or transition. I'm talking about crowning and pushing baby out. And what happens is that the baby's head is sitting there and it's stretching everything. And then there's a contraction that comes a little bit out and a little bit more back. And this happens a lot, and it happens for varying in different ways for different people. So it's very rare to see a baby pushed out in the same, like exactly the same parts and exactly the same pattern. It's, I think everyone has it very differently. And so it's at that point that you are feeling as a mother, as the birthing person, you are feeling when the contraction is coming and how your muscles are pushing, you having that sensation. So you are knowing how much strength there is there. You can add to the push, or you can actually not. If that push is too much, you can, and you can release the pressure of it so that it's not too much at once. But you are controlling this because you are inside and you are feeling this. You are also feeling the yoni at the vulva, the stretching and the burning. So you are also having that feeling that you can know how much baby is coming out because you're having that sensation locally. You also can feel it with your fingers. So you can put your hand over your yoni and you can feel how your baby's head is coming out into your hands and how much yoni is stretching and how much the head is coming out if it's going too fast. And in this way, you can sense and control your own pushing. So you are not, the fetal ejection reflex is great, but sometimes because it can all just happen so fast, or because, well, you know, it's different ways. It might not happen so fast, but it might happen at the end so fast, or those last 3 pushes, or that last 1 push. I mean, it's just nice when you see that baby's head coming and you see the perineum and you see it stretching and then you see it all go white and then you just see it open. And I've seen that before and I don't want that to happen. It was fine, we fixed it. These vagina, the vulva, the yoni, this is one of, she is so forgiving. She is so wanting to just heal up in the least problem to us. So we actually, a lot of yoni care is kind of giving her time. Don't look after a birth. There's no reason to, not as a mother, there's no reason to look, you know, and see it in the healing process. Look afterwards and be amazed. But what we want to do is prevent the tearing. And I really feel that the mother, knowing that it is in her senses, was the most empowering thing for me, so that I could feel my baby's head coming out into my hand, but I could feel how much I was tearing because I am in me, and I could control that with the amount of pressure the pushing was doing, because it was, I could, it was my pushing, it was my body. And Shami's head came out, and then I fell asleep, or I lost consciousness or something. And then Mary Ann said, catch him. I put my hands down and caught him. And, but it was really that process of engaging all my senses. And I like telling this to moms because I feel it is very empowering. And I do feel that if we haven't kind of, it's not like we can start our relationship at birth and labor. So to start communicating with Yoni and to start feeling us, feel her and touch her, I think is helpful to the whole process of birth as well, but not necessary. I have found that when I cannot see the pushing part, that it's helpful to have, I don't like coaching at all, but there are times when I can say, okay, just slow it down now, just slow it down now, because I can see not all women are going to be having their hands there, but I can see, okay, just slow down the stretching, slow down the stretching. And you'll see most midwives actually are taught, we're not taught, in med school, we're not taught to put pressure there, but you're taught to support it. So you don't want to, it becomes so thin, that whole area, it's almost like you don't want to touch it because it will bleed. So you use moisture, you know, if you are tending to that area, or if you are birthing yourself, use moisture. If you're in the water, you've got moisture. If you're not in the water, you can squeeze warm, not cold, just like put some drops of cold water on your yoni, and you'll know, not cold water. Your yoni does not like cold water. She likes warm. She'll become soft and warm and open with warm water, in a warm bath with oils or warm oils. So that is something also that helps. And you might see when it, and you don't want to put it on and rub, you drip it on, because the area is so fragile and vulnerable and sensitive. So you want to almost support, and people, we're taught to support like with a cloth, like you hold it, so you're not holding onto the skin, you're kind of holding it, I don't know if you can see, holding it up a bit, because you're just wanting, but you don't want to create the contrasting friction. So it creates a lot, becomes, you know, different midwives have different ways. I'm kind of more hands off, but sometimes if I've seen that there's a need for more support, I do go there gently or with oils. Yeah, there was a time in South Africa where I had like a really, not that has anything to do with me, but there was a time there was no tearing in the birth, and it was just fantastic, because it's not a nice part of birth to have to stitch afterwards. And even the stitching is a whole nother discussion, because they don't always have to be stitches, and the stitches at the hospital are generally done too tight, and they cause a lot of pain. The episiotomies are definitely done too tight. Okay, so yeah, so I'm just checking that the yoni tearing. Now you'll meet different midwives, I think, and people will say, oh, this is the way to do it. Like I have the secret magic wand that's going to, you know, but I think as soon as somebody says that, you just know there's, they're talking out their ass, because there's never one way to do anything. And we really have to own our own healing process. So I'm just telling you so many amazing options of how to create, of you seeing what you can connect with to create, one, the communication, and one, the healing space for yoni. Postpartum yoni healing is a whole beautiful subject in also, and Maven's also brought in how we can care and clean for yoni now. And, you know, believe it or not, when I started doing this, I made a presentation for schoolgirls on how to clean our yoni and yoni care, because I knew that we weren't getting what we needed to know, but we were just assumed that we were meant to know it. And you assumed so many things, you know. So I did do a presentation on exactly that, because it's not just how to clean, it's what to avoid as well. So, it's a biggish question, but basically you want to clean with water, you want to avoid chemicals, you want to be gentle. Your yoni doesn't need soap. Water is fine, soap is chemicals, and she might have a reaction to that. You want to wear underwear that breathes. You want to you know, there's different, I guess there's different ways your yoni is going to speak to you about how it wants you to care for her also. So there might be reasons or inspiration to do other things like steaming, or yoni steaming, or looking at taking care of our yoni through what we eat. What we eat is affecting our yoni. What, our partners, or who we are allowing inside our yoni, will affect that. Our flora, our stress will affect our flora, our vaginal flora. So we want to know how to take care of our vaginal flora. The good bacteria, in our vagina is such an essential part of vaginal health. Things like washing after having sex and weeing, urinating after having sex, things like that is part of clearing our vagina. Yes, there are herbs and essential oils. Just for general care, it really depends. You see, that's the magic wand approach. It really depends on what your personality, your nature in terms of Ayurveda, the doshas. Yoni steaming postpartum is not the same for everyone. If you have more of a pitta or a fast metabolism, or you have more fiery energy, you're not going to sit on your steam as long as if you have a lot more kapha, stagnant energy. So everything depends. And so you have to use it through a filter. And if you don't feel enough in whatever way that you have a filter to filter it through, ask your yoni. She knows. So you go to a herb and you feel it. But there are some very general, beautiful ones that you can imagine, like rose. Just by the nature of being rose is such a beautiful steam. If you want to get into her properties, then you can get into the properties of why you're steaming, what your body needs, where you are in your womanhood lifestyle. Menopausal steams or care or herbs will be very different from postpartum or for menarche. But I have a yoni steaming infographic I'll share. And that's got different herbs for different reasons. So you have like your cleansing herbs, your healing herbs, calendula, marshmallow, your circulatory herbs, because just bringing circulation to our pelvis is very important. The sitting, these morning sessions, sitting so long for me, I don't think I've ever sat for so long at one time in this way. And it's not good for our pelvis. Driving's too much, not good for our pelvis. All these activities in life right now in like modern living, not so great, because we are sitting, we are creating a stagnancy. We're closing off circulation. There's, our urethra is already so short. And so we actually need to consciously stand up, get a standing computer, or, bring back the circulation with herbs like raspberry leaf, which is also preparing the uterus in pregnancy. And yeah, so those are some ideas, but that would also lead into the question about taking care of our yoni. Don't sit so long, dance, circulate. It's like Michaela Boehm said this, it's the most important part of our body because it's where creation happens and where, well, as we know, so I don't have to explain it so much why it's so important, but it's the parts of the body that we don't take care of, that we don't like realize, well, what does she need to be important? Well, she needs circulation. And we put our kids at desks and sit there, and the circulation is stagnant. But why are we getting fertility problems? You don't need fertility drugs necessarily. Don't want to offend the medics. Very important work, yes. But you know what? There's a lot of stuff that has been done to us that has made us dependent on them. So when I say, what does our yoni need? It's not just a nice talk. What does our yoni need? And it's not a fancy like medicine or herb or the latest hormonal things or the latest genetic test and like all of that. It's not that, it's the simple things. Are we eating enough oils? Is our vagina getting blood circulation? No, are we putting nylon lingerie on? So it's the small details of listening to Yoni that she'll guide you to where and how and what she needs. So silly, so like simply, like you feel like, oh, this is too simple, but no, you don't have to read. You can actually just feel. And it's true. It's true, because what she does then is she shows you that you know exactly how to heal yourself. You do. You can filter through the homeopath or the herbalist or the gynae or the obstetrician or, you know, the latest alchemy priestess, but you are your own healer. So that's what Yoni wisdom has done for me. And that's why I can never stand in a place of saying, yes, I'm your doctor and I know everything and I know how to heal you. I can't do it. And that's why we have to reframe the whole consultation, because that whole setup is a misnomer. Where on earth do we get a health consultation that we're across the desk from someone and they're going to tell us how to take care of ourselves? We know how to take care of ourselves. We can go to them and, you know, and get advice or specific thing for a problem, but we have to know that we want to take that treatment feels right for us. How much Yoni treatments am I talking about that women do that are not felt right for them? Okay, how's this story? A lady has a beautiful birth. She's so grateful because her gynae let her have a very nice natural birth. Her husband's over on looking at the Yoni side of the bed next to the gynae. The gynae winks at him and says, I'll put in the husband stitch for you. Do you want it? He asked the husband. What's a husband stitch? Somebody knows, yeah? Does anybody, does no, Lisa? No one knows. Okay, I'll just.
Is it when they stitch it extra tight, like really, really tightly? Yeah.
So they'll put in an extra stitch so that it's more satisfying. Okay, I was going to say more satisfying for the husband during intercourse. And Sneha is also adding it's for beautification. So it's also what women might want to feel more beautiful. I mean, I've seen Yonis that look unscathed after birth, unscathed. It's incredible. And it's just incredible, the capacity of what we, of our Yoni. Okay, but let's just get back to some practical things, more practical things. Those were practical, but also not necessarily for birth and for preparing for birth. So just some things you can do to practically prepare is the oil massage. And somebody I love to learn that from, her name's the same as mine actually, but spelled differently. Gauri Mota, Gowri Mota. I can write it. Gentle birth method. Not gentle birth, yeah, gentle birth method. If you just look up her on YouTube, she gives very kind of clear details on how to do a perineal massage. And the perineal massage can also be done during pregnancy from 35, 36 weeks to, no, then again, you want to feel comfortable. So you ask your Yoni, you know, and if you feel like, okay, no, not ready, or no, then you don't push past that barrier, but maybe press on thighs or the outer and just be more gentle. But it's a perineal massage. She says it in a specific way, and you can look it up. So it's really just softening and working with the muscle around, but gently, because we're pregnant, we don't want to stimulate. And I think in that, you can do it, your partner can do it. In that, I think there is a sense of lubrication, there's that sense of connection that helps you to know your own body. And there is that feeling of receiving pressure, or so you kind of can just start talking to your body that it's going to be receiving pressure. And it does hopefully soften the tissues. This Yoni massage, just Maven and everyone else, for outside of pregnancy is Tammy Kent has written a lot about that, and it's something I would really like to explore more, because then we also work with releasing psychological feelings and emotions that come up in the Yoni massage, and it's something we can do ourselves, but I wouldn't recognize that in pregnancy now. Yeah. So for this, I would just say you're just getting to know, you're just getting to loosen, you're just listening to your body, you having your own fingers in there, just feeling comfortable, not pushing far, just connecting. And then she goes into more specifics if you like that. I'll like read a recipe and do it myself. So I'll read how she does perineal massage and I'll do it myself. And I think that's good actually in some ways. In some ways, you have to learn from your own mistakes or something like that. But I'd like you to take, because the reason I'm saying that is because sometimes hers is very, it might feel intense, and I don't want to put anyone in a situation where they feel they have to make it intense. You can read hers and then just start feeling for yourself and sharing with your partner if you'd like. Some people like doing that. And you don't have to do it. I did an epino for my first birth. And does anyone know what an epino is? An epino is, it's like something tied to, like you have your blood pressure cuff, so you can puff up air into something, and it's attached to a balloon. So I actually rented mine, so I used condoms over it to keep it sterile. And you blow it, you put it in, and then you blow it up, and it's a balloon. So you can blow it up to however feels comfortable, and then you practice pushing it out. So it's not a baby's head. So it doesn't feel that hard. It's a balloon, and you can kind of build yourself up and you keep it in for some time, and then you push it out. And I did that, and that has mixed reviews, because there's nothing that works all the time for everyone. So and it also is very user dependent, so you don't know if everyone's using things the same way. But the epino is something, I think it's lost its favor now. But this was 17 years ago. It was like a known thing. I don't know if I'd really recommend it specifically, but sometimes these things work for different people. And that is something that it also gives you that sensation of pushing, so you have this sensation of pushing something out, which is weird for us to maybe imagine before we have a baby. Yeah, I guess. So there's the Yoni, the perineal massage or Yoni massage is epino, and I'm sure some of you in India are familiar with the Yoni pichu, P-I-C-H-U, Ayurveda. It's you will soak a cotton or a gauze. They kind of roll it in a specific way, but you don't have to. And you will soak the gauze in. It can be specifically medicated oil, but if you don't have that access, sesame oil is always a nice one to use. And you soak it in the gauze in sesame oil, and you put it inside your yoni, your vagina, and you leave it there overnight. And then the whole area becomes very softened and nourished by the oil, and it feels loose and supple and nice. Okay, thanks, Tara. And that is also something you can leave on overnight. You can do it once a week, and that is also something out of pregnancy that I think is a nice yoni healing connection, nourishing. So there's the Yoni pichu, and there's, yeah, I mean, I know in Germany actually they were the midwife there was recommending steaming during pregnancy, but I would say you need to know a bit before you get about steaming. I don't recommend steaming during pregnancy, but I know also, yeah, many Russians were used to use that in labor and pregnancy. but I prefer using it afterwards. So I'm not going to focus on it before, and unless there's a bit more variables that I'd want to feel safe with for that. So that's the postpartum part of Yoni. But I want you, to just kind of take it back through, is just to see how, one, we need to reframe Yoni, and most of the women, including us that we are working with, are going to really be carrying a lot of these associations. And number two is in that reframing, we're engaging with our own inner process. So we kind of have to take that on, we can't bypass it. And then we keep asking the questions and keep connecting, because the Yoni will really guide us. And these kind of fears, talk into them. And, the one fear brought up, my Yoni won't be the same after birth. She won't be the same, but in a very positive way. And she does heal remarkably. So I don't think those feelings around being looser for sex or being prolapse are all necessarily in the same conversation as natural birth. I think there's so many factors around that. And so it's not like natural birth equals that. Yeah. I just want to see if I had, okay. So I do have an exercise for everyone today, or in time. Before I read that, how's everyone, does anyone have any questions? How's this connecting with everyone? Maybe you have also got some nice shares even on your Yoni practices to prevent tearing. The overstitching and tearing is is also avoidable by, at the birth using nori, the seaweed. Did you use it, Tanika? No, you heard about it. So it's a lovely way of healing the Yoni, because it's very gentle. It's you just wet it first. Don't put the dry nori in your Yoni. You can just cut it, tear it into a piece like that, fold it, wet it, then it's like a band-aid, and you can literally put it onto your Yoni. I would often, like if this is the floor of the Yoni, this is where most of the tears happen. And I would just put it on that, and then it would just flap over the perineum, where also tears tend to happen. Vaginal tears, if they're not big and they're not bleeding, I tend to not stitch. I don't know if you all want to hear these details, but I think it's important to know that you have a choice. You don't have to stitch. A perineum is a bit more difficult to not stitch. Yeah, perineum, you kind of want to, and a lot of it is not stitching. It's like just putting it together so the Yoni can heal herself in a better alignment, so things don't heal a bit skew perhaps, and with time. So the stitches come out, but then the skin underneath has come up in its healing process. I just want to, Nikita had to go. How much does the perineal massage help avoid tearing? You see, I think the tearing is so variable and dependable that the research has never shown anything so that this is always going to help everyone, that everyone should do it. So how much does it help to avoid tearing is difficult to quantify. However, I think that the experience for the mother will guide her. The massage will hopefully, if she's doing it connectively, guide her to know more about how to push, if she can listen to her body in that process. And so it's not always just okay, it's going to help her 55%. It's like the whole picture, and knowing that she can do that is going to help her to heal so much better afterwards, also with tearing or not tearing. But it depends so much more on the position, on if there's coached pushing, if how she is lying down or positioning. Sometimes people's contractions during pushing change. They can become slower and stronger. They can become variable. They can become consistent and intense. So it is so much. Somebody as a practitioner, like watching and trying to avoid it, you have to like know all of this and know the broader picture and know the anatomy and know that you will know what to say at the time. Yeah. Manjari?
Yeah, it's not regarding tearing, but still about what you talked when reframing Yoni. What would you say is the impact of sexual abuse, and what could be helpful to heal that trauma while reconnecting with our Yoni?
I think it's huge and devastating because so much of us have had some experience, and that leads everything into how we engage with our Yoni. So I would say a lot of patience and a lot of tenderness and a lot of sometimes, you know, I don't find it so easy to say to a client, like, were you abused in childhood? And I don't just like expect them to like say that. So you don't know, you know, we often don't know. So we always have to be so sensitive, more so, and we have to be so sensitive when I'm coming into a place of saying, okay, let's go and let's be brave and touch our yonis and feel these painful things and heal them, because they're not true. And then that comes onto, you know, more of a trauma-informed approach of healing. Yeah. Yeah, because and there's so much, because there's so many beautiful healing modalities. And I did write a few different ways we can actually connect with our Yoni. And one of them is Yoni eggs. Yoni eggs is a crystal that you can, in the shape of an egg, that you can tie sterile strings on so it won't get lost inside. Some people are worried about that, but you insert the actual quartz and that energy inside the Yoni. And there is healing practices you can do, or approaches. Yoni massage is a beautiful way to release or acknowledge or accept. But these things are hard, so I don't want to also say that they should be done. They can be done alone because we're sovereign. We can make that decision ourselves. But I also feel that there's so much sisterly support. There's so much sensitivity and awareness we need to bring into this field. Yeah. Sneha? Manjari, does that?
Hi, Gauri.
Yes.
So I would just like to add my experience. So I gave birth to my son. So I have two sons. So I gave birth to my younger one at a birthing center in Kerala, and so we reached there at the 36th week, and later we were recommended to consult an Ayurvedic doctor there. So an Ayurvedic consultant who guided us to have this oil used in a tampon, and to put it in overnight into the vagina, which would make the birth canal better for the baby to come out, and it seemed to help the tearing of the vagina while birthing. So yeah, so these practices are also there according to Ayurveda here in India, which really helped me because the first child was vaginally born, but in a hospital setup, and I did get the stitches and etc. And so the doctor did give me a cut. Episiotomy was done, but here while birthing at a natural birthing center here in India, my experience was that this Ayurvedic oil did help me, for a month I used it, and the process was very easy. The baby came out quick, and I had a delivery with, I had a birthing while my baby had no water inside. So yeah, it was tough, but still
Wow.
we could birth naturally, vaginally without any major interventions. So it was an experience, and I give that credit to the oil which I had used. I feel, personally, my body feels that really helped my vagina, and the recovery of it after the baby's birth was also quite, faster, because
Yes.
then the calendula tincture and all the essentials oil. We Otherwise we use Dettol and water, all those antiseptic things
Wow.
the doctors recommend. But here,
Wow.
after the birthing, it was, sitz bath with warm water, rock salt, garlic, crushed garlic, and this calendula tincture with every wash. So this routine helped me, get healed faster. Like within 15 days, I was good to go, with all my natural tear which happened. So yeah, this practices does help. Yeah.
Yeah, Ayurveda is so beautiful for yoni care.
Yeah.
It really, it's well, it makes sense, hey.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. I'm going to share one story and then I'm going to finish off. There was once when I was working in the wards in the hospital, and there was once a lady, I guess I was on call then, so she completely refused a vaginal examination. And there's sometimes in the hospital where you have to do it, you're the doctor doing the rounds. All the doctors are going to come and do their round after you and ask you why you didn't do what you're meant to do. So I've had to do a lot of pelvic examinations where women haven't wanted it, or and they hold your hand. They stop your hand sometimes from going in, and I'm just trying to express the feelings of being on the other side of this, in terms of having to do many different vaginal examinations in different ways. And that one woman, she wouldn't let me, and I couldn't force her, because she didn't even speak English. She was, I think, Malawian or Somalian. She was living, she had come to a transfer hospital, so her home was an hour away. She wasn't even in labor. She just thought she was, because she was scared. And she didn't want and she'd stopped contracting. I didn't have to do the pelvic exam. I could see she stopped contracting. But technically I had to do the pelvic exam to write in the book. But that just left an imprint on, or left such a thing on me that I didn't make myself do it, because eventually I felt like I was raping her if I had to do it. So I agreed she didn't need it, and I didn't do it. Yes, Manjari, I was aware that she might be carrying a lot of trauma there, and I needed to respect that. And when we're not respected, like that in birth, we're imprinting more capacity for abuse. So that's a huge topic. It's not just about making Yoni sound like a temple and beautiful. We're going to decorate her with flowers and make nice smells and say, yoo-hoo, she's our woohoo, in our portal. She is so sensitive. She holds so much for us. She holds within us the potential to feel the pleasure associated with creation. We have to look after her. Yeah, so shaving, you see, it's so different in India. You can't even refuse an episiotomy. And shaving is, it's just really up to you. There's no rules. But in India, they I mean, in cesareans, they shave because it's where they cut, but they don't shave at all. What do you say? What do you say to anything? You say, I don't want you to shave my vagina. Can you please not? Or my vulva, my yoni. Say, I want to decline the shaving. And you probably in India have to like set it up with the head of the hospital. I can write you any letter you want and write it from Dr. Gauri and say, my patient, or sorry, my patient, what an awful thing. So-and-so due to medical conditions or allergies must not be shaved if you don't want to be shaved, or shave before. I would probably shave before. Do they shave you anyway if you shave before?
So yeah, I was aware of this thing and I wasn't comfortable though. So I did that before going to the hospital, like a week before it. So, but for the first time when I went into the hospital, when they were about to start their routine of, giving induction and stuff. So a sister came out and, she was ready with a razor and stuff. And like, I want to do the shave. I was like, okay, wait, I am already done with it. So you don't need it. So she was like very happy. So, I know it is very weird and absurd for the nurses or the sisters as well, because, going into someone's private zone and, doing things which they really don't want to. But then the nurse was very happy that I did my part. So they were like pretty good, because others, it is, that the ladies, there are situations when the females don't do it. And then it is a protocol, they say, that they have to follow. So
Yeah.
I don't think so. The females
I would say,
to say no.
Outside of India, it's become, I mean, I don't think in privates and public hospitals, they don't shave in natural births. I don't think routinely like it's done in India. But I think one of the reasons that it's done routinely in India is because it makes all the other interventions easier.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't have any other interventions, then hair is not a problem. It's not a problem for the baby. It's, it can catch when you're doing stitches, but it's not a problem. You're not stitching the mons pubis, or the outer vulva normally. You can just get it, but otherwise it's like, I think it's just for the other interventions they'll do, like episiotomy or I don't know, it's quite an interest. It's one of those things which really they're still doing that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's finish off with our stories. And just take the time when it feels right to you. It is new moon, yesterday, today, maybe a bit today also. So that's a nice time to do these things. So if we can just sit in a meditation in a silent place in our own time and can just connect with the stories. So allow the silence to filter through the thoughts and just start to connect, just start to give space and listen to our Yoni's story and how she shares the journey of her life, like she's had with you, and just listen to her story. Listen to her becoming a woman. Was it easy? Was it hard? Was it fair? Listen to her story of learning to love, of becoming a lover and learning to receive. Listen to her story of how she felt in her doctor's appointments, in her own births, in her healing, at times of inflammation. How have we cared for her? When has she been itchy and wanted to be heard? And just start connecting with our Yoni that allows us to receive and hear more from her, because she's teaching us to receive, to just receive. There's so much in receiving, reception. It's the secret. You see, when you enter the Yoni wisdom, you learn that the code of the sacred feminine in creation is receiving. It's receiving. So she has an amazing gift to us in allowing us to receive, and it opens us up higher awareness of consciousness, manifestation, and re-knowing who we are. And this is important when we are offering Yoni care to someone else. We need to be so gentle, sensitive, ask for permission, be quiet, and consider what your Yoni will, separate now, consider what your Yoni would like. So it's with this sacred awareness and deep gratitude to our Yoni, and being aware of how deeply intimate and connected our Yoni is to our highest wisdom, to our vulnerability, and to our self, how deeply affirming and supporting she is of our well-being, sovereignty, and pleasure. And of Mother Nature, also the design and the plants or the things she used, that in her innate ability to really repair and to heal herself, her innate intelligence in that capacity as well. So that is reframing Yoni wisdom. I feel a bit, again, like we've opened a treasure chest of wisdom, that it's not just about not tearing at birth, but there's so much more that our Yoni wants to share and tell us about healing and about claiming and rising and feeling honored and valued and worth. It's like she is our greatest supporter, actually. And we have that within each of us. So we need to reframe those words into ways that are fitting. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We'll finish off here.